Hey there, gang. It is time for another comic book unboxing video. And this is a bit of a special box because this box comes with a story. So if you like comic books, and if you like pretty old comic books, and if you like stories about little old ladies selling their old comic books, stick around. We're going to have some fun. Hey there, Bubby. Welcome to Shanghai. My name is Duke, and this is an unboxing video. And as I noted, this box comes with a story. As always, I have no idea exactly what is in this box, but I've got a little better than usual idea because I am hip to the tale that comes with this box. So we'll get to that in just a moment, but first, please do like, share, subscribe, comment, do all of the groovy things as you are so moved throughout this video. And so we'll get to the story. This is a box that we got from literally a little old lady in Idaho. And as the story was related to me by one of the co-owners of our company, this lady had a couple of boxes of comic books in her attic, cellar, somewhere appendage to the house. And she asked the neighbor if they were worth anything. And he said, nah, they're not worth anything, you know. And so she put them in a yard sale. Neighbor came over and bought them all. So she was, she said, that seems a little curious. And luckily, she had held some back. Rather, she had just, some deep-rooted woman's intuition or what. But she held back this box that we're looking at here. Well, it wasn't, in a comic book box originally, but these books that she had, plus a handful more that we'll talk about in just a moment. But she held them back, and she instead of having another yard sale, she contacted us through our website, sellmycomicbooks.com. And we made an offer. I don't know if I'm allowed to say exactly what the offer was, but I don't think I'm betraying any confidences by telling you it was 5 figures. So this little old lady did a lot better through us than she did through her neighbor. A lot better. So yeah, we got this box in, and so just the idea that we paid 5 figures for this short box of comic books, you may be wondering what's in it. Well, let me show you this, because I did get to see some of the books that aren't actually in the physical box that we're looking at here. And I'll show you this video. There were 3 here, one in particular that we bought the box for above all else. And I caught our shipping manager, Jamie, just as he was about to pop these into the hot press before sending them off to CGC. And let's start the video here. And as you can see, there is a showcase number 4, first appearance of the Barry Allen Flash. Then we had a Superman 75, Superman and Batman discover each other's secret identities. And back there, that other one was a Lois Lane, not Lois Lane, showcase, number 9, I believe. It's called the first solo Lois Lane in her own title. So yeah, those are pretty good books. And there were probably 6 or 8 other books that Tall Sean showed me that were pre-code horror books. My memory is that, my memory, such as it is, this was only like a day ago. But my memory is that only one of them was like an EC book. But there were 6 or 8 pre-code horror books that have also gone off to CGC. But the rest of it's going to be sold on eBay raw, meaning, not slabbed, not graded by CGC, but instead here on my desk, graded by me. And I just realized I don't, I got Captain Kirk, but I don't have my ring, and I don't have my Legion flight ring here. Oh my goodness. Well, let's be a Green Lantern today. How's that? I don't think we're going to see any Green Lanterns in here because based on the other books that I saw and what Sean told me, oh my God, I can't, it's one size fits all, but one size fits all did not exactly take into account my girth. The blob got nothing on me. All right, so This will have to be a quick video so that I don't completely cut the circulation off to that finger. So, what was I saying? Oh, yeah, so these are all, should be, if I understood the story correctly, these should all be like Uranium Age comic books. Or some people would say Atom Age. Some people call it a sling blade. But let's go ahead. Let's stop my yapping and making stupid jokes, and we'll get right to it. So, there you go, right off. Detective Comics number, where's the number? Got a little stain here. That's unfortunate. I don't see the number. Oh, 199. Look at that. The Invisible Batman. Can you see him? Very convenient that he comes with an outline. But, and I don't know what this is. This is a little incongruous with the story. Does that say not MUTT? Hot, maybe? Maybe after she contacted us, Ashley might have given her some information that she could look up the value of the books. I don't know. But anyway, so this is the kind of thing we're going to see throughout this box. So if this is what you like, these 1950s books, and we may see a lot of Silver Age DC, then by golly, get yourself a tasty beverage, settle in. You're about to have a good time. So here's Adult Robin and Baby Batman, Detective 218. Searching for a new Robin. So this thing with, DC having 5,000 Robins, that's not exactly a new trope. It was around at least as far back as Detective 237. Here is 242, the Underworld Batcave. Batman falls in love. That is Batman number 87. I'm just laughing because can you imagine doing that cover today? Because people just take their comic books so darn seriously. But you could then. Here's a nice adventure comics, 208. So, Rip Van Winkle of Smallville. Here's 223. Superboy as Hercules Jr. 224. Pa Kent Superman. Well, that's something that was done a lot. The Pa Kent. I don't know why it was always Pa Kent. Ma Kent never got superpowers, but through the years, there's probably about 20, 25 issues that have got that. Well, there's another one right there. And this is 236, so this is only a short time later. Of course, Mort Weisinger, the editor, was famous, and rather this is, the story is true or apocryphal, he tended to get ideas from the kids in his neighborhood, and he'd poll them on what they wanted to see and any goofy idea they came up with. And if he got, a reaction, by golly, he would beat that to death. Here's 239, New Sensation, Crypto. I don't think this is the first Crypto, but it's a very early Crypto. And you can see here, he's kind of cartoonish. It would take them a little while to settle in and decide that he should have a more realistic look. But, I mean, look, he's actually talking. And 237. 237, is this one the, I think it's 237 that has, because at this time, Adventure Comics would have a Superboy story, as well as generally Aquaman and Green Arrow, at least. This one might be early enough that it also had some Shining Knight or some Johnny Quick. So no, I don't think this is the right issue. Maybe it's 239. The story I'm starting to tell is that there is an issue. Of course, there was this mania for a time for precursors, like something that was later reused as something else. For example, the story in whatever issue of whatever pre-hero Marvel comic it appeared in. There was a story with a young boy who lived with an Aunt May and an Uncle Ben, and it was by Ditko, if I recall correctly, and they looked exactly like the Aunt May and Uncle Ben you know from the Spider-Man comics. And so there was a mania for a while of identifying those different precursors. And there was a story about the Intergalactic Vigilante Squadron. And it was listed in the Overstreet Price Guide as a Legion of Superheroes precursor, because it's about 10 issues before, although this isn't the issue. But anyway, that was a false listing. Overstreet was notorious for putting things into the price guide that really didn't matter to the price or that were in fact errors, just to catch people who are copying his data. So if you ever see an issue of Adventure Comics featuring the Intergalactic Vigilante Squadron and you see it listed as a Legion precursor, it's not. There are legitimate Legion precursors, but that one has absolutely nothing to do with the Legion whatsoever. So anyway, I just spent a long time telling you a story about something we're not even looking at. It's pretty typical. This is something else that would happen a lot through this era and the early Silver Age. Either Superman or Superboy meeting with, and I think that does say hot. I think that's supposed to be hot. So I guess they're all hot. But anyway, Superboy meeting with Hercules and Samson and other strongmen of the past. And there's probably about 15 or 20 examples of that through the Uranium and the Silver Age. There's Batman painting a self-portrait for whatever reason. Batman number 106. I wonder if this whole box is going to be Silver Age DC. That would be cool. Oh, actually, as soon as I said it, this next stack, Strange Stories of Suspense. So that's a pre-hero Marvel book, an Atlas book. That's number 9. And that looks like it is that Joe Manley? So that kind of looks like. Marvel Tales, when it was a horror book. What issue number is this? 107. Dick Tracy Monthly. Excuse me, there's a few books in this bag. You may remember a few videos back we saw Dick Tracy Monthly number 1. Let's see what else we've got here. I don't know what issue number this one is. Let's look. Number 5. So that's still pretty cool. Red Ryder Comics. I think most people couldn't tell you who Red Ryder was today apart from A Christmas Story. That's number 92. And there's some actual Red Ryder there. Some photos. Ooh, Western Comics. Bet you didn't know that DC had a title called Western Comics, which starred Powwow Smith. That's number 55. Here's the Donald Duck. There's a few in this bag as well. You can see these are not hot. And again, I don't know. It doesn't quite keep with this. Doesn't track with the story. Those tags on some of these books. But again, I think maybe after she contacted us through the website, Ashley gave her some information so she could judge for herself what the books were worth and if our offer was fair. But like I said, we're 5 figures. We're usually pretty good about giving a fair price. So there's Donald Duck number 64. Walt Disney Comics and Stories number 203. Well, Donald, if you're going to sunbathe directly under the pier, and why is there a pier? Well, maybe all of this is water. I don't know. But why is there a pier just on the beach and not on the water? Walter Lantz New Funnies with some early, looks like early Woody Woodpecker. That is number 227. And here is another Walt Disney book. Number, is that 148? Looks like 148. Christmas cover. And here's some more multiple books in the bag. The Flying A's Range Rider. I presume this was based on, was it a TV show? Or a series of B-movies? I don't know. Here's Kid Colt in Wild Western. That's an early Marvel Atlas book. It's a nice shape, too. Well, it looks like the top staples popped, but still, nice looking book. Oh, wow. The Adventures of Dean Martin and Jerry Lewis, number 33. And too bad for Dean. Once they broke up the act, the comic book continued on as The Adventures of Jerry Lewis, and there was no concurrent Dean Martin comic, which would have been cool, to see which one sold better. But I guess we know in advance which one would have sold better. So, what do we got here? This is a 4-color book, number 757, The True Story of Jesse James. Looks like it's based on a movie, and it looks like that movie starred. That looks like the woman who played Grandma Walton, doesn't it? I don't know how well you can see that on the video. Here, maybe if I get super close. Yeah, now it's out of focus, so is that better? Indian Chief. And I don't know what issue of Indian Chief this is. Let's take a look. Number 11. Number 11 of Indian Chief. And this is a 4-color book, number 608, Max Brand's Silvertip. I have no idea who Max Brand was, do you? I'm assuming Max Brand was an author on the model of Zane Grey. And Bugs Bunny. Bugs Bunny. You'll remember a few videos back we looked at some very early Looney Tunes comics. This is Bugs Bunny number 65. These books are really quite charming. And a lot of the later Goldkey and Whitman comics reprint these stories. And I'm kind of sad that as a kid I passed my nose up at those. Wish I hadn't. All right, well, here you go. WHIZ Comics number 142. WHIZ had very wordy covers. And Adventures into the Unknown from ACG, the kind of sort of sister company to DC Comics. It was run by Harry Donenfeld's son-in-law. Number 30, if I didn't say. It feels like there's 2 in there. Nope. House of Mystery, number 56. What's wrong with me, Doctor? What does the fluoroscope show? When was the last time it was called a fluoroscope? Put the Floronic Man behind a fluoroscope and see what you get. I'm so stupid. Strange Suspense Stories. This is a Charlton comic book, number 29. And that's this would be some early Dick Giordano art, or Giordano. I don't know really how to say it. Tonto, the Lone Ranger's companion Tonto. Spokane. Huh. Wasn't one of the famous comic book collections that was found, there's like the famous Mile High collection. Wasn't there a Spokane collection as well? Or am I imagining that? I'm not going to take that out of the bag to see what number it is, but you can freeze the frame and then go to Mike's Amazing World or the Grand Comic Book Database and search for that cover and find out for yourself. That's the same outfit that Indian Chief was wearing back here a bit. I wonder if we had an early crossover. A DELL cowboy crossover. The Lone Ranger. Somebody wrote 1956 on the cover. And this one doesn't have a little thing on it that says hot, which is probably just as well, because I told you before, Lone Ranger books don't really sell that well for us. Or when I say not that well, I mean they do well enough, but not, when you consider it as a percentage of the price guides, they don't do anywhere near as well as the price guide would indicate they should do. And I think it's just a factor of after a couple of, quote-unquote failed movies that it's kind of a dead property, which is too bad. The property is actually owned by Comcast. It's owned by Comcast through Universal Pictures, through DreamWorks, through Classics Media. So they could do Lone Ranger again if they wanted to. But with no comic book and no movie or no other property, it's just kind of languishing out there, and every day that goes by, the merchandising potential fades a little further. This has got a subscription crease in it, right down the middle. All right, I yacked about that one long enough. Mutt and Jeff, number 59. And if you are a youngling, and actually, I don't actually remember Mutt and Jeff. I don't think Mutt and Jeff were still in the comic books, not the comic books, the comic strips, the newspaper strips, even when I was a kid, which was a long time ago. But, anyway. Number 699, 4-color. Now, Prince Valiant, I remember from the newspapers. But 699, that one won't do as well as it should. And that's got a Spokane stamp on it as well. Also stamped up as Spokane is Pat Sullivan's Felix the Cat, number 45 from TOBY Press. We don't get a lot of TOBY Press books. Here is a DC Funny Animal book from the 50s, Peter Porkchops, number 10. So think of that. That's pretty cool. Pretty cool. And our next stack, Real Screen Comics, starring the Fox and the Crow. And that seems like a weird title, but the idea was that these were actually cartoon characters from, who was it, Columbia? I think it was Columbia. Excuse me. And DC, I think, licensed the characters, and they might even, I'll have to look it up, but I think they might even have actually purchased the characters outright at some point. I think DC might actually own Fox and Crow. I'm not really sure. But anyway, because they were cartoons, because you could really see them on the movie screen, it was Real Screen Comics. And then later on, as this is number 45, but later in the run it became TV Screen Comics. Because you were more likely to see those cartoons on your television than at a movie theater. Here's a fairly early Wonder Woman. Number 64, the 3D Terror. Look at that. She's throwing away her 3D glasses. She's like, hey, wait a second. That thing really is popping out of the screen. Here's number 71. And if you ever wonder what this little North American thing here with the ID in it, that is independent distributors. So, and you would find that on books other than just DC. Books carried. I don't think that's just Independent News. Independent News was the distributor that was owned by DC Comics. They basically, like today, distributed through Diamond, or now we've got the options of Lunar and whatever. DC actually owned its own distributor back then. But I think that ID is the conglomerate of all the different national distributors, or many of them anyway. And there's a Batman comic with a little seldom seen Batman logo up here at the top. That's not something they did for very long. Usually it was Superman who got top billing in the DC logo. And you see here, it says National Comics. That's how DC was actually known. They were National Comics, not DC Comics. And of course, the conventional story is that DC stood for Detective Comics. Because, oh God, I'm going to tell another story. I'm going to end up having to split this video in two. Oh, well, I'm going to do it anyway. So if you don't know, DC Comics started out as sort of a merger of a couple of different companies. And the first was National Allied Publications, which was started by a former cavalry officer turned pulp magazine writer, Major Malcolm Wheeler Nicholson. And he was always running right on the ragged edge of financial disaster. And after skipping, well, I won't say skipping out on a couple of printers, but certainly the evidence would seem to indicate having needed to move to a different printer, let's put it that way. He ended up with Harry Donenfeld, and Donenfeld, who owned DC Comic Books, initially ended up owning a printing press. And Donenfeld is a character himself. He was a failed clothing salesman. And actually, I believe he sold for the company that owned the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory. You know, the legend of the factory that burned down, and all the women, the seamstresses, were locked inside because they had locked the doors so they couldn't, go out and take breaks and things like that. And a bunch of women died. One of the things that led to the union movement. But then he was a failed store owner, and he ended up landing as like third brother in a printing company owned by his older brothers. There was one younger brother as well. And somehow, within a couple of years, he went from junior partner to owning the whole thing, and the older brothers are completely gone and out of the picture. And the prevailing theory is that Harry was, because this was during the bootleg era of Prohibition, Harry was arranging for the shipment of alcohol in deliveries of paper from Canada. And somehow, with the help of the gang, he ended up taking over that printing company. And so anyway, he was initially a printer, not a publisher. And so Malcolm Wheeler Nicholson went to Donenfeld as a printer. And I think later on he printed just the covers, but initially he printed the full books. But anyway, it was called Donny Press, which was the name of the printing company. At least at one point, that's what it was known as. And so the books still were teetering on the edge. The few books, there was New Comics, and there was Fun Comics, which became More Fun Comics, and New Comics became New Adventure, and then just Adventure Comics. And so when they went to start another title, Donenfeld and his business manager, Jack Leibowitz, they decided that they were going to own part of the company. And so so Detective Comics was a second company set up just to publish the title Detective Comics. So now you had two companies: National Allied Publications, owned by Wheeler Nicholson, and Detective Comics Incorporated, owned by Donenfeld and Wheeler Nicholson. And then there was a third company that was set up through MC Gaines, which was All American Comic Books. So anyway, eventually the major got pushed out. And the whole reason I'm telling you this story is that the company was still known as National Comics, which, as they, the three entities merged together, that became kind of the name, and later National Periodical Publications. But it was known in the industry as National Comics, and even Jack Kirby would always, to his dying day, would speak of working for National Comics, never of DC. And so, even though the conventional wisdom today is that DC stood for Detective Comics Incorporated, again, the company was National Comics, and it has been said that the DC actually stood for Donenfeld Comics. So, which side of that do you fall on? Do you think the DC is Detective Comics, or is it Donenfeld Comics? Because why would you have Detective Comics and National Comics in the logo like that? I think that was Harry Donenfeld's little ego stamp. But anyway, there's the Batman logo that you didn't see very often. I'll probably end up cutting that story out. That was kind of long and pointless. As I always say, come for the comics, stay for the high quality content. All right, so here's a bunch of batarangs: a bomb batarang, a flashbulb batarang, seeing eye batarang. These are basically drones. Police whistle batarang, that one actually would be cool. A magnet batarang. So if it's a magnet batarang, if you throw it and it magnetizes to something, is it really a batarang, a boomerang? And actually, some of these, I don't think they would fly. I don't think they would. But, you know, suspension of disbelief and all that. And that's number 244. Action Comics 248 with Congorilla, the Amazing Man-Ape. And Congorilla was, Congo Bill was this, you know, jungle safari character that had appeared in Action Comics and other DC books forever. Even actually had his own title and had, I believe, a movie serial. And but he adopted this golden gorilla, although he is brown here on this cover, and he ended up with a magic ring. We don't have a replica of his ring, unfortunately, but the ring allowed him for a short time to transfer his brain into the body of the gorilla, and the gorilla's mind went into his body. So it was kind of like Negative Man. You know, when Negative Man emerges, the body just collapses, and somebody's got to watch the body while Negative Man is doing his thing. It was kind of the same thing when Congorilla went into action. When Congo Bill's brain went into the gorilla body, Congo Bill's body with the gorilla brain had to be locked in a cage or somewhere and watched over carefully that it did not do harm to itself. All right, 235, Action Comics. Lots of hot chicks in the Kurt Swan, George Klein style. Ooh, Superman's got a new costume and a groovy anti-kryptonite belt. And this one says Northwest, which I guess makes sense in that these books allegedly came from the Idaho area. Very fashionable, this little mini cape on cape. That probably has the name in fashion circles, but I'm not enough of a fashion maven to have any idea. Hey, Sergeant Superman, Action Comics 205. That's cool. The Adventures of Mental Man. I'd like to see DC publish Mental Man today. Actually, that'd be a good Tom King comic book, wouldn't it? Mental Man. Oh, here's a trope. Superman fighting Clark Kent. 194 of Action Comics. And this is Action Comics number 167. Some nice Wayne boring art. Pennies. Do they really worry about pennies in the armored car? I don't know. This is the Mother Goose Crimes. It's Mother Goose. Who's the... Not Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. Who's the guy who stuck his thumb in a pie? I can't remember. But that's number 110. That's early. That's actually into the Golden Age, 1947. Hey, that guy's flying. You can't fly. There's one other power I have that you haven't got. What could it be? The man who was mightier than Superman. Number 209. Now this next stack I can see here. This is groovy to me. Might not be to you. But I'm a big fan of BLACKHAWK. Especially these old Reed Crandall, Dick Dillon ones. And this is not too long after DC took over the title. DC took over the title at, I think, number 109, or was it 108? And this is 117. BLACKHAWK was originally published by Quality Comics. The Fantastic Mr. Freeze, so apparently the Batman villain. He had a career here against the Blackhawks. Duel of the Giants. That's crazy. Number 110. Oh, the Little Wise Guys. Charles Biroux. So if you don't, here's another story, which you probably already know, but I'm going to tell it anyway. Daredevil from Lev Gleason Publications was the character who appeared. He had boomerangs, actually. Speaking of the batarangs we just saw, his weapon of choice was a boomerang. And he had that alternating color costume, blue and red on the top, and then red and blue on the bottom. And anyway, the little wise guides after a while appeared, and they were his sidekicks, and eventually they took over the title. I mean, after a while he would only appear here in the logo, maybe a brief cameo inside, but then they took over the title completely. He was gone. It was still, and they kept the title, Daredevil, but he doesn't appear at all. They completely took it over. Kind of in the way that Nancy took over the Fritzy Fritz comic strip, and Popeye took over Thimble Theater, or the way that Tom and Jerry took over the Our Gang comics title. So anyway, what else have we got here? Popeye, speaking of Popeye, Spinach Farm, yum. Yum, that's Popeye number 19. Jackie Gleason and the Honeymooners, wow. I don't see an issue number on here, so it must be early. I'm doubting it's number 1, but what issue is it? Number 7. I love that caricature of Art Carney. That's funny. That's funny. Oh, you've got the other Reggie Van Gleason. You've got the other characters in the Rudy the Repairman. Yeah, a lot of the other Jackie Gleason characters. Of course, and people only remember the Ralph Cramden today. Here's 4-color, number 366. Bugs Bunny and Uncle Buckskin comes to town. Here's another Indian Chief, featuring White Eagle. Gabby Hayes Western. Cool. Number 42. Another Indian Chief. And we've got a few books in here. Let's see what we've got. Let us see what we shall see. Indian Chief. That looks like, I don't know. He's either very deeply red or he looks black. It's number 10. Straight Arrow, another Indian character, number 24, from Magazine Enterprises. Tarzan's Jungle Annual. Wow. Cool. Number 5, 1956. And actually, you know what? I think we're about, better than halfway through the box. I'm going to cut it right there, just because I yacked and gabbed way too long. So I don't want the video to be too long. So we will be back next time out. And until then, when we finish off this box, goodbye, good luck, and please be good to each other. And so if you ever see the easy for me today. So I'll cut that out.